Hey, it's Rick. Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'll show you how I create this vintage patent drawing design of a cheeseburger. Using Photoshop, I quickly blocked in the large shapes for this design. I wanted a horizontal design and an image for both the front and the back of the shirt. Once I had that, I collapsed it onto a layer and reduced its opacity so that I could work on top of it. Using the text tool, I block in some nonsense text just to get a feel for size and shape. This is some of the reference I've collected for this project, some patent drawings and some cheeseburger images. I start by drawing out the top bun on a layer. At this point, I'm just experimenting, because I'm not sure where this is going to go. I'm more concerned now about the line weight, but won't really know if it's what I like until I've got more of the image completed. I realize now that the line weight was too thick and I start the tomatoes over. The thickness of the line wasn't allowing me to get in the detail I wanted. I'm using the brush tool in Photoshop with some smoothing turned on. I decide now to quickly sketch in the rest of the elements. This will give me a clear direction of what I need to create in high res. I'm making the burger this way because I'm really not sure how it's going to fit into the final layout, so I'm creating each element as a complete and separate layer so they can be moved around later. I tried drawing this bottom bun out freehand, but it was not coming out well. I ended up just putting a stroke on an oval selection. At this point, I've got my brush size set at 15 pixels, and the image is 600 dpi. I'm creating a pattern here for the shadows. I noticed in many of the references I have that they used a lot of parallel lines for shading, so I'm creating something here I can just paint in. I'll keep this on a layer and use a mask to reveal it as needed. For something like this patty, where I wanted it to be perfect but not perfect, I stroked an oval selection, which left me with a perfect oval, but then I pulled it into liquify and just wiggled the line work around a bit. This gives it a bit more of an irregular hand-drawn look, but in a more controllable way. I tried drawing these pickle slices out several times until I gave up and created a path for the line. It was the same story for these onion slices. I stroked an oval selection and warped it in liquify. The only thing is make sure to duplicate the pieces pre-warping so they all have a different final look. Now at some point I had to decide what I consider to be the quintessential ingredients for a burger. You may not agree, but this is what I prefer. I pulled the whole burger image into my layout, and now I can move everything around and check the spacing. Patent drawings always have these callouts, points of interest you can look up in a legend to describe what you're looking at. In this case, the callouts will be listed in a separate graphic on the back of the shirt. In some of the old patent drawings I found online, there was a logo and business info at the top, identifying who filled out the patent in the first place. And I thought, for authenticity, I should make something up. While watching TV on the couch, I sketched up a couple of things. I've scanned these into the computer and traced over them to create the logo. The bottom part of the design I want to be accessories. That is, adjacent products to the main product, which in this case would be things you need to go with your burger, like condiments, plates, napkins, etc. I looked up some vintage bottle designs just to keep this authentic. There's often some other stuff on patent drawings like signatures and dates, so I thought those would look more authentic if I just drew them out and scanned them. Oftentimes there are cutaways on the old drawings, so I thought it would be fun to include one here. More hand-drawn words here for the condiment bottles. I just couldn't find a font that I thought looked appropriate. Now that I've got all the callouts on the front figured out, I can start working on the back of the shirt. I'm just filling in a bunch of bullshit here. I'm using some of the references I found online for examples of what should be on the second page. Usually it's things like describing the purpose of the device you're patenting, along with other legal stuff. I noticed on some of the drawings, along with the info, they have an additional drawing, showing how the product might be used, so I thought it'd be funny to put a pic of a guy demonstrating how to use a cheeseburger. This is where all the texturizing happens. I didn't invent this trick, I learned this from a YouTube channel called Texture Labs. I'll put a link in the description. I won't go into that much depth because he does a great job in his video. I flatten all my layers. I want to roughen up the line work to make it look like a very old drawing that's been photocopied many times. Once I flatten, I use the Selection Color tool to select all the black. When that's done, go down to the bottom of the Layers palette and click Solid Color. This will give you a new layer that is solid black, but the shapes are defined by a layer mask. Then select your background and fill it with white. We don't need that anymore. You can see here as an example, when I blur the layer mask, all the black line work blurs as well. Whatever effect we do to the mask will alter the edges of the black line work. The first step is to duplicate your layer. You want to keep a version that's unmodified just in case. Then, with the layer mask selected, go to Filter, Pixelate, Crystallize. Set that to about 5. You can see what that does to the edges. You'll have to experiment with the settings on your own images. A lot of it will depend on the line weight and resolution. Just play with it to get the results you want. Once that's done, I duplicate the layer again and right-click on the layer mask and choose Select and Mask. Once you're in Select and Mask, you can use Smooth, Feather, and Contrast sliders to give you some pretty interesting broken line effects. By creating layer effects with different settings and stacking them, you can get a wide variety of intensities. That's how I got to this point on the image. The last thing I'm going to show you is how I added some smudges. The first thing I do is to save my document, and then save it again under a new name. This is going to be a separate file. I create a new layer and then I paint black where I want the smudges to go. I create a layer mask and, using a texture brush, I give the smudges some rough edges. I fill the background with white and then flatten the image. Once the image is flattened, I realize it needs to be lightened a bit, so this is where I adjust the curves. Then I convert it to grayscale, convert it to bitmap, and what you'll get is this halftone image. Now you need to convert it back to grayscale and then back to RGB. Open up your original document again, and while holding the Shift key, drag this image into that document. Holding the Shift key makes it line up perfectly. Changing the layer composite type to multiply, and that's it. You've added halftone textures to your image. And using those techniques, I ended up with this. Here's the front design, and here's the back. Well, that's it for this one. I hope it was some inspiration for how easy it is to create your own designs. Hit all the buttons on your way out, and thanks for watching.